Well, and joining us via Skype right now is author and filmmaker Jim Wahlberg. Jim, thanks for being with us today. How you doing?
Oh, I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for that great introduction.
Well deserved. Hey, we're going to catch up, and spend some time talking about the book, The Big Hustle, and your film. But first, tell us what's been going on with you during all this COVID thing since last you were here on Catholic TV.
Well, obviously we're living through some very interesting times, and I've been very busy. These are more difficult times for people who suffer from addiction and from mental illness, right? Because they're isolated. They're told to stay away from everybody, to stay in their home. And in recovery, if you will, is human connection. It's community, it's love, it's friendship. And so when you take that away from people, things get more complicated, more difficult, and isolation is the enemy, So been very busy trying to help folks navigate the waters, trying to help folks find help, treatment, whatever it is.
Yeah, crazy times, Jim. One day at a time, I guess that's the way you get through these things. And The Big Hustle, which I happen to have right here in my hand from our Sunday Visitor, shares how a certain Boston street kid lands in prison, 68-year sentence, and puts on quite an act to create an illusion of change and gets a reduced sentence. But could you share with us how a certain very good priest changed your scheme with the offer of a job?
So yeah, Father Jim Freitas, a great man who's in heaven now, approached me at MCI Concord and offered me a job because I was in the process of creating this illusion that I was trying to get better. So I was doing things that put me out there as a person who was trying to get rehabilitated. Was certainly a game. But he approached me and offered me a job as the custodian in the chapel. And I instantly thought, this is going to be great. Father Jim Freitas actually smoked cigarettes back then. So I was going to have access to cigarettes. I was going to have access to coffee. I was going to have access to a phone, which he had. And I was going to have access to just some privacy, some quiet. And so I thought I was going to hustle. I took the job, and it wasn't long after that he said to me, Jim, listen, I need you to clean the chapel after Mass on Saturday evening. So why don't you just come to Mass and then clean, and then you can go back to your cell block. And I didn't even think of it, never connected it. I just went, right? And now he's got me back at Mass, right? And maybe a week or two later, he says to me, Jim, we have a very special visitor coming to this prison. And I said, that's great, Father. Who's that? And he said, Mother Teresa is coming to this prison. And I said, that's amazing. Who's Mother Teresa? Because even though I grew up Catholic, and what that meant to me was it was more tradition than faith. I wasn't taught about a loving God. I was taught about this is what we do on Sunday, right? And this is our tradition. But I was robbed, I think, of a true faith. So at that time of my life, I probably didn't even know who the president of the United States was either, to be quite honest with you, right? Because I was in rough shape. But I did some research, and 2 weeks later, Mother Teresa comes walking into that prison. And it was life-changing for me. It was the most profound moment in my entire life. I felt almost as though I was looking at God, and then, because I worked in the chapel, I was part of the procession. So I was involved in the Mass, right? And we processed in, and the Cardinal was beckoning Mother Teresa to come and be on the stage or the altar in the gymnasium where they had the Mass, and she refused. And so I saw humility, right? And I saw her stay on her knees with her sisters in the middle of some of the most dangerous people I had ever met in my life. And that moved me. And then it was her time to come up and speak. And she spoke, and, in hindsight, it was like everybody else disappeared, right? And it was like she was talking directly to me. And she said words that I never heard before, and I certainly never felt before. And she said, you are more than the crimes that you committed to be here. You're a child of God. Jesus Christ died for your sins. and she was talking directly to me, right? The next day I ran back to Father Freitas and I said, Father Freitas, I need to know more about this God. I need to know more about Jesus. I need to know more about my faith. And that day started the process of me preparing to make my confirmation, which I did in state prison.
Jim, a lot of times when people have an addiction or run into problems with crime, people label them and then take away their dignity. How do we get past that and the labeling and look to a future, too, that can be of hope and a bright future?
Well, I mean, you know, we live in a country that I think we're led to believe that if somebody, you know, breaks the law, they pay their debt to society, and then, you know, they're forgiven in a sense, right? But it's not always the case, right? Many times people carry labels around with them. I did for a long time, right? But for me, what it was that I had to live it. I couldn't talk it. I had to live it. I had to be a sober man. I had to be a dignified man. I had to be a man of service. People needed to see me out there helping others, being of use. And you know, you just can't talk about it. You got to do it. They got to see it. So, you know, I think that, you know, folks, you know, we were talking earlier about most people, I think, know somebody suffering from addiction. I think most people probably know somebody that's had some trouble with the law as well now, right? Because addiction is so big and it's such a widespread problem. And addiction and trouble with the law kind of go hand in hand.
Speaking of addictions, Jim, you partnered with our Sunday Visitor to produce this great film. We're going to air it here on Catholic TV. Thank you so much for this opportunity to help families understand that addictions afflict everyone in the family. Can you give us kind of a tease, a bit of a background on the film?
Yeah, absolutely. The star of the film is an 8-year-old girl.
Wow.
Yes. This 8-year-old girl suffers a devastating loss due to addiction and ends up in she ended up being raised by her grandparents. And her grandmother is a prayer warrior. And she's just trying to get her family to heaven. And it's her daughter-in-law who is lost, the little girl's mom. And yeah, I mean, we see a family struggle. We see a family that is in need of God's mercy in a big way. And we see that to start to unfold for this family. Right, they come together in that one instance where people start to look to God, when all through the film and through their lives they refuse to do that. So it's a beautiful story, and this little girl, watch out for her. Watch out for her because she is absolutely amazing, a very talented little girl. And we shot that film in Florida. Archbishop Thomas Winsky of Miami is in the film. We shot 95% of the film on Catholic property. And the little girl, it came down to 2 little girls for the lead role. And the one who got it, they both lived in Florida, but the one who got it, the last thing she told me after her second audition was, my dad's from Boston. And I was like, oops, that don't happen by accident.
No.
So, yeah.
What about the kids? We're looking forward to it.
Yeah, and thank you for letting us show it. Actually, tonight, Monday at 9:30, and then a couple more times during the week. The Big Hustle, what's really your goal with the book? What are you trying to help people do?
You know, so my first goal is to share with people that nothing is too big for God, right? And then I also want to chip away at the stigma, right? So I have this last name, right? That's recognizable, right? And I think sometimes people think that addiction is only happening to a certain segment of the population, or that if it's happening to them, they can't talk about it, right? And so I think by sharing my story, and I hope to chip away at some of that stigma, to let people know that recovery is possible. right? And to never give up on people. And sometimes the only thing you can do for people is pray for them.
Well, thank you so much, Jim. And one last question. Was it hard to relive a lot of the stuff you talk about in The Big Hustle, going to jail and all of that?
It was hard to see it in black and white.
Okay.
It wasn't hard to, I'm out, I share my story regularly. I'm on tour with the DEA. We do events with between 5,000 and 10,000 young people per event. So I share my story quite a bit, I think, but it was hard to see it in black and white, to read it, to relive a lot of the difficulties that I had with my dad. But then also to, the joy of that is that we were able to heal as a father and son. We were able to forgive each other, to love each other, and actually to live under the same roof again as grown men.
Well, I have to tell you, Jim, you got me in trouble today, and you didn't even know it.
Really?
Yeah. We were supposed to have a 6-minute interview, but it was so good, I just kept going, and now they have to figure out what to take out of the show.
Oh, Bonnie must be going crazy in the background.
She's smiling.
She's laughing.
Smiling over there.
She's smiling.
Jim, where can people find out more about all of your work, the book, the movie, and everything you do?
Okay, so actually we just launched my website, jimwahlberg.com, but you can also go to Our Sunday Visitor for the book and the film. You can go to whataboutthekidsfilm.com to see the film. You guys are going to show the film, which is amazing. Each time another outlet opens up their airways to have this conversation, right, is another piece in the puzzle of ending the stigma and pointing people in the direction of talking and asking for help. So I thank you all for your willingness to participate.
Well, it's been a pleasure. What about the kids and The Big Hustle? Jim, thank you so much for being with us and for being a good friend of Catholic TV. Keep up the great work.
Thank you. God bless you.
Bye, Jim. God bless
Thank you.